Welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in here to a live edition of Off the Top Rope here, celebrating 300 episodes of AEW Dynamite. I remember back in early, this was actually right, I had lived in Washington, D.C. when AEW was going to become a thing. And they were at Capital One Arena right after I had moved back here to Los Angeles about 6 years ago. To see them at 300 episodes really is, I mean, look, it should absolutely be commended. No matter how I feel about AEW, this needs to be, celebrated to some degree because, it's really a great accomplishment for, it's really a great accomplishment for, AEW to ultimately reach such a milestone, which most shows do not do. I think they spent more time glorifying passing WCW than a 300th episode, and I would have done it the other way around because 300 episodes, I think, is more than 289 or whatever the hell it was. Um, this was an interesting night for AEW because overall, I've got to say, this was probably one of the best episodes of Dynamite since Double or Nothing. Like this was really a really well done episode of television for the people over at All Elite Wrestling because you know one thing I harp on with Tony Khan is the inconsistencies with which he progresses forward with like a lot of storylines and how he books from show to show. And for most of this build, he has not done a really good job, in my opinion. It's not been really well executed. A lot of these big matches didn't really feel big. There hasn't really been a lot of key story moments. Some key figures were off of television. Kenny Omega, he returned tonight. So in a lot of ways, a lot of things get you hyped up for the show. Here's the thing, and here's the problem. It's a week from Saturday this show is happening. And where the hell was this 4 weeks ago? Where the hell was this? Like if you're gonna if you mean to tell me that if you mean to tell me that AEW could just empty their tank because it's the 300th episode and because, hey, they've got 10 days left to build a show, that they're just going to empty the tank and do really solid television. And not a lot of this show was perfect. I mean, we had an obvious Mercedes Moné title defense that was on this show, so there's that. There was a couple of nonsensical matches that were sponsored by heroes versus villains. Beast Mortos got another match with top talent that didn't need to be there. But hey, it was capped off. It was bookended by really, the two big men's matches on this show feeling like big deals and getting, and then obviously, a major stipulation for the third one, which was a tag team match. Separate from that, the fact that a non-title tag match is more significant than what's going to be the tag team title match at this pay-per-view is a problem. So, it's it really it's I just wonder why AEW can't do this on a consistent basis. And it's one of the reasons why I harp on them all the time with their inconsistencies going in between shows and just sort of going from place to place. And it's like, okay, we're getting from A to B, and like we'll just kick the can down the road to like ultimately be like just marginally closer. And that being said, this build, a lot of these things that happened probably should have happened at least a couple of weeks ago. So it's big picture, man. Like I said, the show on paper, like had some really strong matches. You had a strong main event. All the wrestling on the show, was fine. That's never been my issue with this show. But then you have a couple matches that mean nothing, predictable, matches across the show. Who was really going to win. We did get some storyline developments across multiple key parts of the All In card. Um, so anyway, you guys can get at me here with your thoughts in the comments, and ultimately tell me what you thought of this show. And super chats are open, everything, just sort of talking it out here with you guys. But I'm not everybody wants to look at me to not to maybe potentially shit on this show, and it's like, what some people are calling it one of the best episodes of I wouldn't go that far. There's still problems. And the biggest issue for me, at least, 30,000 foot view, just really big picture. This is a big problem with AEW, because the fact that this had to come out 10 days before your show, and you're still not moving very many tickets, like you're at 19,000. I just, I really, it's frustrating because the sickos are going to eat this up because they eat out of Tony Khan's the palm of his hand. But when you're 10 days out from a show, it should feel much bigger than this, and you shouldn't have to inject life into it this late in the game. Like, you should be hyping this up. Like, you shouldn't, like, I'll talk about it in a second. Having to go to basically a stipulation that, it was kind of obvious that this was going to go this route. Because I think a Hangman Moxley straight match, you knew there was going to be shenanigans. So they were going to probably have to go to a but to go to a Texas death match, I'm fine with it. Here's the problem with that. And let's just get into this right now with what really kicked off the show. And first off, Hangman's incredible. He's incredible. Like, just the best character. I'm a little worried about what's going to happen at All In. But the problem here with going to this whole stipulation of, ultimately it being a Texas death match and Moxley resisting it, because there was a couple things here. So the first thing is, they literally did this match at Revolution 2023. They literally did this match 2.5 years ago. So John Moxley, basically, I don't think you have the stomach for that. Literally, when John Moxley 2.5 years ago was being hung by a chain over the top rope to give up in the Texas death match in California, in San Francisco, back in 2023. And we're just supposed to forget that. So this is these things that, like, these, I guess, logic points, logic gaps that you would have going into this thing. And this is what frustrates me as just, like, a guy who's watched this product from episode 1 to now episode 300. It was odd to go there. And, I think it opens up a lot of possibilities for this match, some good, some bad, because everybody who's on the internet, and let me just say this, everybody who's on the internet saying that Hangman is guaranteed to win this match, I do not feel that way. Hell, there's a couple reasons why I don't feel strongly about Hangman Adam Page ultimately winning the world title. Going into one of the big issues here is this is now a Texas death match. I don't believe that, if you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that there are pinfalls in that match. You're going to get a bunch of bullshit. Darby Allin's in the periphery. He could show up. He could be in that gauntlet. You also have MJF. That Casino Gauntlet could absolutely play a role in this match. There's a lot of ways and the other thing is, I'm not 100% sure that that's the main event of your show, because what was the last image that we saw on this show this evening? What was the last image that we saw? It was Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi. Okada and Omega has a good argument to be the main event. I would main event with the world title, not some thrown together world title or unified title. So the Texas death stipulations, considering Hangman has already won a match against John Moxley in a stipulation just over 2 years ago, that's a problem. You've got the Death Riders, you've got the Young Bucks, you've got Swerve and Ospreay potentially getting involved. Like, it's not cut and dry, man. So I do like them injecting a little bit of unpredictability across some of their storylines. That made it certainly, Again, like I said, where the hell has this been, man? Where the heck has this been for Tony Khan and AEW? Where the heck has this been? So, they're not far. They're probably like about an hour or two, away in Ontario, California, not too far from me. So, obviously the Hangman promo opens up. This was, it would, like I said, I love Hangman. The whole thing, the whole promo with Moxley, it was fine. It dragged on for a little bit, but then, obviously the Texas death stipulation gets accepted, and then Hangman buckshot lariats Marina Shafir. Hey, man on women violence. I mean, that is some real cowboy shit there. So, they gave a big moment there to Hangman. It was very interesting to see them actually go to that level of violence with man on woman. So that was certainly something. Opening match is Mercedes Moné versus Mina Shirakawa for the TBS title. We'll sort of pick it up here near the end of the match. So Mina hits her glamorous driver, her finish, but Mercedes kicks out at the last second. Shocker. Mina goes for the glamorous driver again, but Mercedes counters with the lung blower. Mina lands a running knee strike, but Mercedes kicks out at a 1. Gets a second. Mercedes gets a second lung blower. Both women are doubled down. Mina escapes another moneymaker attempt, but she gets in a roll-up, and Mercedes Moné wins again. She's still the TBS champion. She just got past 400 days. Listen, this was an awesome match, and Mina really impressed me too. Like she looked great in this match too. This was well wrestled. What I expect from a Mercedes Moné match, but I've got a question. And maybe you guys can help me out here in the chat if there's some Mercedes fans who are mad that I, went after her for like the eonth time or whatever. Why does Mercedes always have to win by the skin of her teeth? Why does it always have to be a roll up? Like, this is like the 9,000th time that I can remember that Mercedes Moné has won via roll up. Can we come up with a better finish? Like, don't tell me that that's to protect another thing. Like, at some point, you're just going to run out of ways to do this. Like, is Mercedes Moné, her moneymaker finish isn't great. She doesn't use her submission. You can't tell me that you're trying to protect people, because at a certain point, when you've beaten everybody with a roll up, and I understand that maybe she's like a chicken shit type of heel, like sort of, but it just doesn't come across as really good booking. You could win matches, like, you could win doing like some sort of nefarious thing, like grabbing the tights or something, or, grabbing the ropes. Or you could hit your finish, but it's the same shit, different day. I think this company, and I don't know what level of creative control Mercedes has had, but, my whole issue is, if you guys pay attention to this channel and what I always talk about here, my whole issue with Mercedes is never been about wrestling. It's always been about the booking and the way that she seems to come out looking stronger than everyone else. And it doesn't really elevate anybody, because, like, let's be real. Mina Shirakawa is a secondary piece in this whole thing. Are we going to really remember, in the grand scheme of things, what this does for Mina Shirakawa? No. Because, hey, here's the problem in itself. Mercedes is challenging for the world title in 10 days. When she's already holding a championship that she just defended against Mina Shirakawa, who in the last 2 months has lost to the women's world champion and the TBS champion. So where is Mina supposed to go from here? Like, it is a complete and utter failure from a creative perspective that they have Mercedes holding on to that title and going into this match at All In facing Toni Storm. You can tell me it's the biggest women's match that they've ever done. I say bullshit. You didn't need to do this. You did not need to do this. But this is a casualty of having your TBS champion just run roughshod over the entire division, and you had no other options. And apparently, this was always the plan. And if that's coming from Tony Khan, that is an absolute misfire. Because how could you in good conscience promote your women's division when you're clearly two stars are way above everybody else, and you're gonna go into this match at All In Texas, and you're gonna tell me that okay, one of these two is gonna be, and also the other part of this that's a huge problem. Mercedes is walking in this match. The world title is the only one on the line. And I understand they're not going to do two unification matches because they already have one between Omega and Okada, but this also represents that you could have handled the women's division a lot better. And the fact that Mercedes is walking into that pay-per-view with another title, that is a complete detriment to the rest of this division. Because listen, if Tony wins, she defends her championship, and Mercedes has lost, a lot of the allure and stuff that she's built up from all these wins, but she also keeps her championship. So maybe there's left open the possibility that Mercedes ultimately is going to win, that Mercedes is ultimately going to win or lose. I think she's going to win, and she's going to be a double champion, which is just going to be a terrible idea. There's really a no-win situation here, but I just it's really creative malpractice because it's like you couldn't have done something with Athena and Mercedes. You couldn't have had Jamie Hayter. I understand that Jamie got hurt and she's probably going to miss All In this year because we haven't heard anything from her really since the whole match Double or Nothing. But you couldn't have come up with something better to potentially, rather than throwing two women into kind of a manufactured storyline, because after the match, Toni Storm was really stoic the entire match in front of a steak dinner, and then she gets up, defends her friend Mina Shirakawa, gets hit back in the back of the head with the title, and that's all we got. And then Mercedes basically said, "Your time is up, my time is now," which I call gimmick infringement, because a certain doctor of thugonomics, the former doctor of thugonomics, who's about to retire, John Cena, originated that phrase. So I'm calling gimmick infringement. I'm only being facetious, but listen, everybody wants to pile on me saying that I'm obsessed with Mercedes. It's just the more I think about this, I think a lot of this lays at the feet of Tony Khan, but some of this is just he's letting this happen. And this is just not a good reflection of the women's division in AEW when you're basically going to have one singles match for the women on this show. And WWE is going to be putting on a bunch of them at Evolution the next day. So, and I understand it. Like, Tony and Mercedes are the two biggest stars in this women's division. They're probably two of the best women's wrestlers in the entire world. And doing this match means something to you. And maybe they know that Mercedes is on some sort of a clock. But the problem that they are faced with here is Tony wants Mercedes to get past the Jade Cargill title run. So you've got to wipe that out of the book. But if you're going to do that, you didn't need to have her go face Toni Storm. You didn't need to have that happen. So I don't know what you guys think. I just think that this is a big time misfire from AEW to ultimately go with this match and go to this point, because it's counterproductive. It's really counterproductive because all you're doing is putting your two best women in a match, and then what happens? It's just like, hey, we're doing this match, two biggest women ever. What's going to happen after this? You're thinking about the matches themselves, and then you're not thinking about the aftermath, because the aftermath of this is either Mercedes is going to have a loss, or Toni Storm, and Toni Storm's going to be the champion, or Mercedes is going to be a double champion, holding all of the gold in AEW and multiple championships from everywhere. And who's even going to measure up to her at that point? We know she's not going to lose that TBS title until what is it, like September, when she passes the 500+ day title run of Jade Cargill. Like, we're still months away from that. So, like, it was a fine match. It was okay. And I'm totally fine with having Mercedes wrestle. She's great at that. She does a lot of good things in the ring. But I mean, I don't know what you guys want me to say. Like, it's just, it feels so counterproductive to this women's division to, just do this match and, have another champion walk in when there's other women in this division that could easily have made a case if you would have built them up. But you spent all this time building up Mercedes Moné. So I spent a lot of time on that, but hey, it's one of the big topics in AEW. Then we get, some of these video packages with the Young Bucks, because it was close. The event was close to Rancho Cucamonga, the home of the Young Bucks. So then we get transitioned into the Casino Gauntlet qualifier for the number 2 entrant, because Mark Briscoe won number 1 last week. MJF, AR Fox, Anthony Bowens, and Brody King. Brody King in California, very cool. MJF ends up winning this match. Brody King hits a Gonzo bomb on Bowens. Fox breaks up the pinfall with I think it looked like a 450 or a dive of some sort. MJF then gets the Salt of the Earth arm breaker and gets AR Fox to tap out. This went about 13 minutes. So MJF's in the gauntlet, which I find really interesting. Thought maybe there was a possibility that Mystico, they would go and run back that match from Grand Slam Mexico, but clearly that's not happening. I think this is the right spot to put MJF if you didn't have a ready-made storyline for him. I think he's one of the favorites to win this gauntlet. But that being said, considering where this guy was the last 2 years, this guy was in the main event of this event 2 years ago. He faced Will Ospreay last year. Now he's in a gauntlet. I hope MJF wins this gauntlet because, to me, MJF winning this gauntlet is probably the best option for AEW at this point, because he should be around the world title. If Hangman wins, that makes that situation very interesting. MJF holding a guaranteed world title match as a heel would be a great idea. I don't know how that's going to go, but to me, he's one of the early favorites. After the match, it got really weird. Well, first of all, we had Mark Briscoe. He blessed us with his presence. He was wearing a great shirt that basically said MJF is tiny kosher pickle, which is great. We're going back to Jewish dick jokes, which is great. So MJF and Briscoe, they're going to have a face-off a few days before the pay-per-view because they're starting off that gauntlet in Texas. Then Jet Speed shows up and they go and attack Lashley and Shelton Benjamin, but they get the crap kicked out of them multiple times. They keep getting up. This did not end for a long time. And then after like the second or third time it happened, Kevin Knight and Mike Bailey basically get up and they say, we're not quitting. And Kevin Knight challenges Shelton Benjamin to a match on Collision. So Collision 100, that's, I believe, going to be either taped today or it's going to be taped on Thursday. Listen, I said it earlier, and we'll get to, Ospreay and Swerve, that development and that story a little bit later on. But this tag team division is a fucking joke. Because how does it benefit Mike Bailey and Kevin Knight? How does it make you believe that they can beat the mighty Hurt Syndicate if they're getting their asses kicked on a regular basis in the entirety of this build? And there's no other credible tag teams in this division that even matter. This division is unrecognizable. I've talked about it at length on this channel. This tag team division, which was once a staple of, and they've got one of the great tag teams of all time in the Young Bucks overseeing this. How is this tag team division this bad? And how is it that a tag team match with the Young Bucks against Swerve and Ospreay, not even a tag team, feel significantly more important than what is going on with this match, which it hasn't even been announced to my recollection. Like, this is wild, absolutely fucking wild that this match means way less than what Swerve and Ospreay and the Bucks are doing in their tag match, which gets made later on in the show. Like, it's just, and maybe they'll win, but why should I care? Why should I care when all Lashley and Shelton have done this entire build is just beat the shit out of everybody, separate from the fact these guys are over. They should be cheered as baby faces, yet the resistance of getting away from that has led to this really awkward vibe where fans are chanting that they hurt people and they're kicking the shit out of Kevin Knight and Speedball. It's just really a bizarre sequence, and this segment just never ended. Like it was really weird. So then we transition into a trios match. Bandito teaming with Roderick Strong and Kyle O'Reilly, the Paragon, take on Matt and Nick Jackson and Takesha. And so this was fun. It went on a decent amount. Takesha's fucking incredible. Bandito's fucking incredible. The Bucks are entertaining. O'Reilly and Roddy are great too. But like this felt really insignificant in the grand scheme of things because all it did was serve as a means to get to the next point, which Swerve and Ospreay show up and basically, re-engage their challenge. Initially, the Bucks say no. Fans say no, or fans are mad about it. And so then Ospreay basically says, are you the young Bucks or are you the young Cucks? Then Ospreay basically says, hey, he tells Swerve to trust him and basically says, hey, listen, we'll do this match and will you agree to it if we basically say, hey, me and Swerve are not challenging for the AEW World title if we lose this match. You guys put your EVP ship up. You guys lose your titles as EVPs. If not, so if you lose your EVP titles. If me and Swerve lose this match, then we're not able to challenge for the world title for a year. Now, one of my big criticisms when they kind of laid this out last week was that not a lot of this made any sense. But now, this is a phenomenal piece of booking. Like, this made this match infinitely more interesting and way more unpredictable. So I got to give kudos to Tony Khan for this element here in adding this little wrinkle into this match because I could see this going either way. Bucks could win, keep their EVP ships because that's their entire gimmick. So them losing that doesn't really but them losing it, then they can obviously reshuffle and potentially, get out of this bullshit that's kind of annoyed a lot of people. Or maybe go off television again and, rethink their characters and repackage themselves. Or you could have them win and then Swerve and Ospreay, they can start potentially feuding with each other because now they can't challenge for the world title. And that becomes a very interesting element of it. And then obviously this keeps Will Ospreay away from the title picture. A lot of people are thinking Forbidden Door potentially could be a spot for him to potentially challenge for the world title should Hangman Adam Page not win and Jon Moxley wins. So that's a thing to think about. But also, like I've said, I think Will Ospreay should be crowned at a big show. And I think there is potential money in just having them lose and chase a little bit. The other part of this that's real, and also it would keep Swerve and Hangman away from each other, which is another thing. They've been too involved in each other's business. But that also poses the problem of, okay, then how are these guys going to get involved in the main event? Are they just going to act in the greater good, even though they can't challenge for the world title? But there's a lot there that by just adding that extra stipulation, I think they made that match really one of the more interesting ones on this entire show. It's going to be there's going to be a lot of great wrestling on the show. Some of these storylines have been really finicky. This was really for just a simple tweak to this match has made this infinitely more interesting. And then for whatever reason, and I didn't understand this, I have a theory here. So Swerve and Ospreay then have a tag match out of this. They basically did the heroes versus villains matches back to back. And really this was to promote, the Superman movie coming out later this month. And, also, hey, they're taking on the Beast Mortos and Dralistico, and Beast Mortos, after being just on Collision, he was kayfabe like romanticizing with Harley Graham, which was Harley Cameron in a mask. was losing a hologram. Now all of a sudden, 3 weeks in a row, this guy is feuding with is involved with main event level talent. He wasn't in the main event this week, so hey, a little bit of a step back there. But can we stop trying to make it so obvious that Mercedes may have some influence within creative? Because how is it that you can justify three basically? Oh, also, where the fuck is Roosh? Like Lefaxion and Gobernable is involved in this match, and you know, Dralistico, no disrespect to him, and Beast Mortos is great, but we obviously know that there's more of a motivation, like other motives in having him be pushed into this spot. The fuck is Roosh? Roosh is fucking awesome. Not even out there at ringside. Like, really? I mean, that was weird. Look, it was well wrestled. There were some cool tag maneuvers with Swerve and Ospreay, but this match didn't need to happen. Much like the tag match before didn't need to happen. You didn't need to throw this in. Like, if you guys would have effectively done, like, some segments across television rather than using wrestling, like, you're using these wrestling matches that really, what I'm going to remember the most is the in-between portion of those two matches. Like, there's some cool moves that went on in these matches, but at the same time, it's like all I'm going to remember is that they added that extra stipulation to Swerve and Ospreay versus the Young Bucks at All In. And that's what I'm going to be talking about. Like, take out some of the lesser stuff, or if you're going to do something like this, don't have Beast Mortos and fucking Dralistico go 50-50 with them for 10 minutes. Like, it just doesn't, it just doesn't help anybody. So, like, I don't know, man. Like, it's one of those things where it's just one of those things that really frustrates me about this company. And then we get Okada versus Ibushi in the main event. This really picked up near the back half of this thing, and this was honestly one of Okada's best performances of his entire AEW run. I've been jokingly and sheepishly saying on this channel for basically, the year and a half that he's been in AEW, that he's really been operating at like, about 20 to 30% capacity of what he's capable of. And, it's kind of, really shown. He's still a great wrestler, but, I don't know. Like, it was one of those things where, like, and also good for Ibushi. We haven't seen him wrestle very much in the last 2 years. Obviously had some internet, some injury issues. A lot of, like, really interesting high spots. Okada's really going for the Rainmaker this whole time, but get near the end of this thing, Ibushi hits a sit-out Tiger Driver. It was literally like a sit-out power bomb from the top rope, which was sick looking. That was a close near fall. Ibushi goes for his Kamigoye finisher, but Okada avoids it. They do roll-ups. Okada uses the rope to cause a rope break. Then he sneaks in a nasty looking lariat, gets his drop kick in, which is fucking beautiful. Like, people talk about Randy Orton's drop kick being, Okada's drop kick is really good. And then he hits the Rainmaker for the win. The Callis family, Rocky Romero shows up. Lance Archer was there for reasons, but they start beating up Ibushi after the match. And then here comes Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega chases them off. Trent Beretta tries to get a sneak attack. Omega drop kicks, basically drop kicks, into a German suplex with the assist from Ibushi. And Omega and Ibushi stand tall. The Golden Lovers stand tall to end the show in a really nice moment. Kenny Omega's back 10 days before the show. I'm glad they didn't wait until the go home to bring him back. But even then, could have done a lot more with this dream match. That being said, this was a great wrestling match. It was really well done. I was really impressed with seeing what Ibushi's done. Again, I thought this was one of Okada's best performances. But yeah, it's pretty standard stuff. Like, it's not really much of a build. They've kind of gotten through things, and this is kind of just hanging on to the aura of these two guys who haven't wrestled a match in really 6-7 years, going to kill it in Texas. And the other thing that I think I mentioned earlier on, one thing that I'm really concerned about is I'm really concerned long term that I'm really concerned that, Hangman may not win the title because there's a real good chance that, the main event ends up being Okada and Omega. Now, you can make the case Texas Death Match in Texas should be the main event. We'll see. And it's for the world title. Listen, a lot of this show is kind of up in the air. So I'll give him this. Some of the unpredictability really, I don't know who's going to win Okada Omega. I don't know who's going to win Tony Mercedes. I don't know who's going to win Hangman. I don't know who's going to win Hangman versus versus Moxley. I don't know how that's going to go. I don't know how Swerve Ospreay versus the Bucks is going to go. So if I'm being honest, like, they got unpredictability working for them going into this show, but I really honestly don't know what like where this build was. Like this build was they really failed. They really failed in this build, and now just kicking into overdrive 10 days out before the show just feels like a really big missed opportunity for AEW. And it's just like, we'll see, man, like what they're able to do moving forward. And, obviously now you'll have the Collision, and then you'll obviously following that, have to figure out what you're going to do the final week as you head to Texas next week to do a lot of stuff there. Obviously Dynamite. I don't think they're going to do Collision because they're going to have Ring of Honor the night before. And then obviously, All in Texas is going to be on a Saturday in the afternoon. So listen, I'm a little bit more excited. I think they put a little bit more time and effort into this show. But the other thing, did this feel like an anniversary show? Because it didn't really feel the one. If I'm getting into my producer brain here, just and just so how I would kind of have framed this, they didn't even bother to bring up any of the great moments in Dynamite history. Again, I think they put way more effort into trying to just clown on WCW and clown on Eric Bischoff in that show in Boston back in April, rather than focusing on this. 300 is a big milestone. A lot of shows don't get there. Focusing on an insignificant just number was really odd. So I understand that they also this being smack dab right in the middle of a build to your biggest show of the year is also an issue. But hey, they did a lot of celebratory stuff in Mexico. Like I don't understand why some of this wrestling stuff could have probably been done without. And you could have built to some of these segments. You could have also incorporated some of the great moments in Dynamite history, maybe brought back former legends, like, highlighted certain things. And, that would have made it, feel more like a special Dynamite show. It still felt like it felt like a road to, All In show for the first time really in this entire build. But if I'm being completely honest, this didn't feel like a celebratory show. This didn't feel like, like we're celebrating 300 episodes. Congratulations on 300 episodes. It's really cool. But if you watch this show and you didn't see that number there, you would have thought this was a normal episode of Dynamite and they were just on the road to a pay-per-view. Like, if you're going to celebrate a milestone, celebrate it. This kind of drove me crazy back in the day with WWE. Sometimes with their milestone shows, they wouldn't give a lot. They wouldn't give a lot of energy to some of their milestones. Like, celebrate it. They were more celebratory towards 289 or whatever the fuck that number is that they passed. So I just think that was kind of a missed opportunity. I kind of understand why they ultimately chose to go down that path. And again, like I said, you're 10 days away from your biggest show of the year. You did a decent enough job to drum up some interest in some of the lower tier matches, like obviously adding a stipulation to the world title match, and then obviously adding a stipulation to Swerve and Ospreay versus the Bucks. But then Omega and Okada doesn't feel really any different. Omega's just back on television, but that really doesn't add any more heat to the feud. Mercedes and Tony feels the exact same, and I think creatives really failed the women's division in that respect. So, yeah, that's really my thoughts on this. Noticeably quiet chat, which is totally fine. You guys get this back on the get this back on the channel later on and go on the replay. I'll probably have more content coming up here as we're heading into a big time. Next week's going to be huge. A lot of wrestling. You got Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and then obviously, the huge weekend with Great American Bash. You'll have Ring of Honor. They're doing Super Card of Honor in July. But you'll have Ring of Honor, you'll have NXT, you'll have All in Texas, you'll have Saturday Night's Main Event, and you'll have Evolution. Holy mackerel. Next weekend is going to be insane. So get yourselves ready for that. We'll have a lot more coming here on the channel. Thanks to everybody who subscribed here. We're well into the 1.5K, 1,500 subscribers. I know I ruffle some feathers, but make no mistake about it. I appreciate the banter. No matter who is there, whether it's good or bad. You guys are what fuels me to do this. I just love talking wrestling. I love talking sports and anything here on the channel. But thanks everybody for tuning in here. I appreciate it. I'm going to sign off. I will see you guys later on here on the channel. Thanks so much. Appreciate all the love and support.